Since Kamala became the presumptive nominee, she's come to Texas twice. Neither time did she go to the border. Because you cannot look at what is happening and defend it. You can't see the suffering. You can't see the death and defend it. Last year, 853 migrants died crossing illegally into this country. When I go to the border, Texas farmers and ranchers, they show me photograph after photograph of dead bodies they find day after day after day. I took 19 senators down to the valley. We went out on boats on the Rio Grande River. As we're out on the river, we saw a dead body, a man floating dead in the river. Presumably had died that day crossing it. You can't look in the eyes of little boys and little girls who've been brutalized by cartels.
That's right.
Without it staying with you. I've looked in the eyes of those children and you can see the pain.
Yep.
The living hell those kids went through. You can't look in the eyes of women who've been repeatedly sexually assaulted and defend what's happening.
That's right.
You can't grieve with the parents who've lost children to drug overdoses. You know, last year we had more than 100,000 drug overdoses that killed Americans. I want you to put that in context. That is nearly double the total number of Americans we lost in the Vietnam War. Vietnam, we lost just over 60,000 Americans. Last year, we lost over 100,000 Americans to drug overdose. 70% of that is Chinese fentanyl flooding across the border. And Kamala Harris and Colin Allred, they can't defend it. They don't have an answer for it. Their answer is they want more of it. Look, some of y'all may have seen the speech I gave in Milwaukee at the Republican National Convention. Talking about all of the victims of illegal immigrants who are committing crimes. Every damn day, another American is murdered, another child is brutalized, another woman is raped by an illegal immigrant that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Colin Allred have let go. Laken Riley, someone we're all familiar with now.
I can't pronounce her name.
He can't. He thinks she's Lincoln Riley, which is a football coach in California. Laken Riley was 22 years old. She was a nursing student in Georgia. She wanted to grow up and help people. She went out jogging and encountered an illegal immigrant who had come from Venezuela. He was apprehended in Texas. We had him in custody. All Biden and Harris had to do was follow the law, put him on a plane, and send him back to Venezuela. And if they followed the law, Laken Riley would still be alive. But instead, they let him go. They let him go, and he went to New York City, where he was arrested again, this time for endangering the safety of a child. But New York City is a sanctuary city. If New York City had locked him up for that crime, Laken Riley would still be alive. But they didn't. New York let him go, and he went from New York down to Georgia. Laken was out jogging, and he picked up a brick and beat her to death with it. You look at Rachel Marin, a beautiful mother of 5. She lived in suburban Maryland. She too went out jogging. And tragically, she encountered an illegal alien who had been in custody. We had him in custody. And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Colin Allred let him go. And he went to L.A. and broke into a woman's house and terrified that mom and her little child in the house. Then he went east to suburban Maryland. Now, you might think, if you look at a map, Maryland is not on our southern border. I'm here to tell you, every every city in America is now on our southern border. Fort Worth is on our southern border. Because every day illegal immigrants turn themselves in to the Biden administration. And when they turn themselves in, they say, where do you want to go? And some say, I want to go to New York. Some say, I want to go to Fort Worth. Some say, I want to go to LA. And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris put them on planes and buses and fly them to every single city in America.
Free of charge.
Free of charge. And Rachel Marin, as she's out there jogging with her 5 little babies still at home, that illegal immigrant raped and murdered Rachel Marin. You look at Boston, Massachusetts. You know, it's not just that the Democrats are releasing just about everyone who crosses the southern border. The Democrats have decided they want even more illegal immigrants than the ones that are showing up at the border. So they launched a program to fly illegal immigrants directly from their countries into America, to fly them from Haiti and Cuba and Venezuela and Nicaragua. Well, in this instance, they flew a man from Haiti to Boston, Massachusetts. They released him in Boston, Massachusetts, and he turned around and he raped a 15-year-old girl with severe mental disabilities. Now, he was arrested for raping that child. And a Democrat judge released him on a $500 bond. This is just wrong. Jeremy Caceres, a 2-year-old boy in Prince George's County, Maryland, murdered by illegal immigrants Joe Biden and Kamala Harris released. New York City, just a couple of months ago, a 13-year-old girl raped in Central Park by illegal immigrants Joe Biden and Kamala Harris released. A police officer in San Antonio just a few weeks ago shot by illegal immigrants that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris released. And in my hometown of Houston, Jocelyn Nunbury. Jocelyn was a beautiful 12-year-old girl. You look at that girl, you look at the bracelet she had. She was kidnapped and raped and murdered by 2 illegal immigrants who Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Colin Allred released. They were apprehended in Texas. We had them in custody. They let them go. And the 2 of them immediately went to Houston, Texas, and just weeks after they'd been released, they murdered poor Jocelyn. Listen, I've gotten to know Jocelyn's mom, Alexis. I've gotten to know Jocelyn's grandfather, Kelvin. I've sat in their living room. Listen, the worst nightmare for anyone on earth is for a parent to lose a child. That's not how it's supposed to work. Children are supposed to bury their parents, not the other way around. The only thing I can imagine worse than a parent losing a child is to lose a child and know what her last minutes and hours on earth were like. What these animals did to that precious angel. Look, there is good in the world and there is evil in the world, and those bastards should burn in hell. But as frustrating as that is, what is most frustrating is this didn't have to happen. It is utterly preventable. A number of y'all have signs, Justice for Jocelyn. I've introduced legislation, the Justice for Jocelyn Act. What does it say? It says that if an illegal alien is in the custody of the federal government, that they must keep that illegal alien in detention so long as there are detention beds available. On the day that Biden released those 2 murderers, there were 3,000 beds that were empty. The detention spaces were wide open. All they had to do was keep them in detention. But they made a decision, a political decision,